I'm Got Late. This is Chapter 11, January 7th, 2003. Early on January 7th, Scott dialed the Enterprise rental office in Modesto and reserved a truck for the following afternoon. The Enterprise staffers alerted the Modesto police, and a court order to place a GPS tracking system on the rental was quickly obtained. Scott then called Amber. He lied about his whereabouts, telling her that he could be out posting flyers and was on his way to a volunteer center. In fact, police records showed that Scott was actually in Fresno when he placed this call. During this lengthy conversation, which has never been made public, Scott tried to convince Amber of another lie, that he had taken a polygraph test. Amber told Scott that she had been researching the case online. Scott, you really haven't done everything you can yet. You don't speak in public with your family. You know there's rumors that you won't take a polygraph test. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors, Scott agreed. Have you taken a polygraph, the polygraph test? Yes, I have, Scott replied. You have? Amber asked, surprised. Yes, Scott repeated. And what happened? Amber inquired. What? How did it go? Fine. I have nothing to hide, Scott stated. You have nothing to hide? Amber asked. No, Scott declared. And so it went fine? Yes, Scott insisted. And so then wouldn't I read somewhere that there's no possible way that you're a suspect at this point? They haven't ruled that out, Scott. Yeah, well, as you read, of course, everyone's a suspect. I'm the prime suspect. And all they say is they haven't ruled me out. They haven't ruled me in, Scott explained. And they can't talk about the case, and they can't tell anyone about the polygraph test. You know, they've searched your house and the warehouse and everything else. Have they found anything? Amber inquired. No, Scott said. Otherwise, I wouldn't be, free. They just have so little to go on. Yes, I have not spoken to the press because I'm not the focus of this. It's finding Lacey. That's the focus of this. I know, but you're the husband, Amber stated. Yes, I am, Scott agreed. Okay, so one thing I want you to do, I want you to promise to prove to me that you took the polygraph test. Okay, I will, Scott agreed. Okay, I want that tomorrow, Amber instructed. I will give you a time. I'll try, Scott interrupted her. No try. You will make it possible, Amber insisted. I will ask that you go in front of the press, and I want you to talk about your polygraph and that you've taken it and completed it, and I think I can do that, Scott said. You think? Amber questioned. I have to ask my attorney, obviously, and I have to ask the police. I don't see where an attorney would disagree for a plea of innocence. That's true, Scott agreed. I want to see this tomorrow, Amber demanded. Amber, Scott said. You taking the polygraph test. I want to see you speaking in the public, Amber commanded. It could be 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever. It could be very short and brief. I want it from you. If you want my respect and my trust and everything else, then you will do this for me, Scott, for us. I need to check with the police and my attorney, Scott said again. You need to check with the police and your attorney, Amber asked. You know, it's not like some huge thing for you to do. It's quite small. I don't know what's huge and what's small now, Scott replied. I could tell you the disappearance of Lacey is huge. Oh, I know that, Scott confirmed. I took the polygraph test, Scott said. I need to check with them if I can say that I have or have not taken the test. Why? Why couldn't you? Because right now the police have not released that I have what I have to the press. They say we have no comment. Who runs your life, Scott? You're a 30-year-old man, Amber declared. Who runs your life? You or the media or the... In this kind of situation, the police and my attorney, Scott replied. I have faith that you will make this possible and that you will have that polygraph test you speak of in front of... Scott interrupted. I took the polygraph test. Okay, Amber said. Then there's no problem. Nobody's telling you not to get up in front of the public. Yes, they are, Scott declared. The police, the families, and my attorney. The lies were spilling from his mouth with abandon. I find it hard to believe that Scott ever thought that he could get away with the deception. In fact, he told Amber he would try to give her answers within 24 hours. He simply didn't care about the repercussions. His only concern was extricating himself from whatever challenge was right in front of him. Later in the conversation, the topic turned to Scott's attorney, Kirk McAllister. Without identifying him by name, Scott said that his lawyer had been a district attorney with 17 years. He knows the cops can make bad cases, Scott commented. They can interpret things wrong. He said this is a game of life and death, Scott stated, referring to McAllister's remarks about the deadly game his client was playing, a remark he would later gleefully relay to his parents. Scott Peterson was fairly insightful about other people, but not about himself. He was obviously excited about the attorney's description, but he failed to realize that McAllister wasn't delivering a compliment. Scott's attorney was trying to shut him down, to keep him quiet, but Scott wasn't interested in taking his advice. He truly believed he could take on law enforcement and win. This is a capital case, Scott told Amber. If they interpret something wrong and they were to arrest me, there is no bail for me. I would have to wait until the trial cleared me, which could be months. So does he think that I'm involved? Amber asked. No, Scott replied. No. Are you sure he knows about me, Scott? He does, Scott assured Amber. And what's his name? The first day we sat down, Scott replied, apparently responding to Amber's first question. What's his name? Amber again demanded. His name is, Scott paused. He's your attorney and you don't know his name? Amber shot back. Amber, hold on. Kirk McAllister, Scott finally divulged. Amber laughed and then took down the spelling of McAllister's name. Scott told Amber that McAllister would be angry if he learned that he was speaking to her. After additional prodding, however, he finally provided Amber with McAllister's phone number. Okay, I still expect you to talk to him. So would you rather me just call of surprise, or do you want to fill him in first? Amber asked. Well, I told him about you, Scott said. In frustration, Scott blurted out, Give me something that is in my control. So is the polygraph admissible in court? Amber asked. No, Scott replied. No, then what do you have to lose? Amber asked, sounding puzzled. I already took it, Amber, Scott insisted. Okay, I want to believe that you have, Amber said. Scott told Amber that he was meeting with the chief of the Modesto Police Department, Roy Wasden, later that afternoon. From there, he was going to Lacey's parents' house where he had been invited for dinner. How are her parents doing? Amber asked. It's awful. It's awful for everyone. You didn't answer my question, Scott, Amber stated. I mean, her mom is taking drugs, Scott revealed. What kind of drugs? Amber asked. You know, like Xanax and stuff, Scott explained. And that's the way she's functioning. She looks like she has no emotions, so I'm worried about her. Was Scott truly incapable of seeing what the entire world could? That Sharon Rocha's heart was being ripped from her body? Or was he merely projecting his own cold-hearted behavior onto his wife's grieving mother? As the call ended, Amber was still insisting that either Scott or his attorney telephone her by noon the following day with proof that he had submitted to a polygraph. Early on January 8th, police tracked Scott to the Red Lion. Just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Scott left the volunteer center and headed to his attorney's office and then to Home Depot. The police watched as he talked on the cell phone from his car. As he pulled out into traffic, Scott dialed his voicemail and retrieved a message from Amber. Hi, Scott. This is Amber. I was calling to say, obviously, at this point, you have no desire in attempt to prove your innocence to me. So at this time, I'm driving to the Modesto Police Department, and I'm going to wipe my hands clean of all of this. Scott, who had allowed Amber's noon deadline to pass without any response, returned her call immediately. Hello, Amber answered. Hi, Amber, it's Scott, he began, his manner cool. Did you not receive my call? I tried to call at 11:30 because I just got your message. You didn't try to call me at 11:30, Amber shot back. Yes, I did, he claimed. More and more, Scott's behavior was calling to mind Hitler's theory reminiscent of the big lie. If you say something completely outrageous but repeat it often enough, many will finally believe you. Over the years, Scott had evidently learned to bulldoze his way through such confrontations. More often than not, he would succeed. No, you did not. My phone was sitting right by me. My phone never rang. The two went back and forth, and Amber finally demanded to know what he was calling about. Well, I wasn't sure. You said yesterday that you'd expect a call by noon, Scott began. Yes, by either you or your attorney. Yes, Amber stated flatly. Scott insisted that he had taken a polygraph at a place called Priority Investigations. And the police were there with you? Amber asked. Yes, Scott confirmed. What are the names of the police people? Amber demanded. Al Brocchini, who is a detective, Scott said. Okay. Well, no, I'm sorry. I think it was Craig who was there, Scott confirmed. No, Craig what? Grogan, Scott replied. He was there when you took the polygraph test, Amber inquired. Yeah. So I can call and contact them and they would give me proof that you took this, correct? Sure, Scott agreed. True or yes? Amber asked. Yes, Scott said. Interesting. Okay, that's something I will do then, Amber threatened. You know, Scott, when people find out, and they will, no one will think your behavior is innocent. Do you understand that? Yeah, I know that, but I had nothing to do with this, so you know. Once they find her, you know, everyone will know that I was not involved in this, and I just, you know, I hope that you are not involved in any degree. And Amber fumed. How? Back up to that last statement. Yeah, well, I was trying to explain it to you, but you know what I mean by that is obviously you're not involved. But I mean, I don't want to have any repercussions from people, you know. What repercussions? My hands are clean of this, Scott, Amber railed. Oh, I know, and I'm the one that lied to you. Exactly, Amber said, and put you in the position. Exactly, Amber shot back. So where do you think that behavior? They're not going to think your behavior is innocent. No, of course not, Scott backed down. No, they won't. You're right. Of course they won't. Next, Amber demanded that Scott walk her through the details of Christmas Eve day. As Scott steered Lacey's SUV through the streets of Modesto, he told Amber that Lacey had awoke first and had cereal for breakfast. Lacey's favorite show, Martha Stewart Living, was on TV, he explained, and she was mopping the floor while watching it. He left home around 9:30 or so, stopping by his warehouse, and then headed for the Berkeley Marina for an afternoon of fishing. So you're telling me that at this point, she was still feeling great in the morning after, you told her that she was aware of me, right? Amber asked. Yes, Scott affirmed. And she was still doing great in the morning with that. She wasn't emotionally distraught about. Scott interjected, no. You not being with her and faithful to her and having someone else, because that's just really hard for me to believe, Amber insisted. Amber next launched into a tirade about a former boyfriend of hers who was married when they first began their relationship. She explained that he had tied the knot in a quickie wedding at a Vegas drive-through chapel, and the evening had resulted in a wedding night pregnancy. I was with him and she was pregnant and had to deal with that, Amber explained. I said, are you sure you want to be with me? You have a pregnant woman here with your child. That was hell for me. Amber went on to explain that the woman hadn't taken the news of her husband's infidelity well. She was a complete crazy woman, Amber explained. She wanted to fight me. Every time he would speak to her on the phone, his wife would ask, "Are you still with that bitch?" "Are you telling me Lacey was okay with me?" Amber insisted. "Well, when you get all the facts, it will make sense to you," Scott contended. "So I'm still having a very hard time thinking in Lacey's shoes. My husband has a girlfriend and I'm pregnant with his child." Amber paused, as if taking a moment to envision how she would feel in that situation. "So when did she first learn of me?" "After our first date," Scott responded coolly. "After our first date," Amber angrily repeated. "Yeah," Scott affirmed as he drove through the streets of Modesto. "So why did you carry the charade of lying to me if she already knew that you knew and you had the opportunity to come clean with me, especially knowing how I feel about the truth?" "I don't know," Scott said. What reason, what purpose would that serve?" Amber demanded. "If Lacey already knows about me and the situation had come up for you to have that opportunity to be honest with me, why did you keep up the deception? Just so you know, I wouldn't, hurt other people and make..." "Who are you gonna hurt?" Amber quizzed. "Well, her family and..." Scott stated. The truth is so much easier to handle than a lie, Scott." "I know, and I'm weak in that regard," Scott admitted. "I was so weak in that regard. This has made me so much stronger in that respect." "Really? But look at where you're at now, Scott, with this in your life." I know. Is it that lying is so fun for you?" Amber asked. "No, lying is terrible. It seems to come to you so easily," Amber said. "It doesn't, and it's a terrible thing I've done. And I know that it's wrong. I'm stronger now." "Or you could just add it to your collection of hobbies, can't you, pathological liar?" Amber shot back. "You can add that to your resume with all your degrees." "I will never lie again. I know you can't believe that." "No, I can't," Amber agreed. The conversation moved on to Scott's reluctance to appear on television. Scott defended his decision, telling Amber that he didn't agree with the angle the media was taking. Now, when you watch like Fox News and they give, 20 minutes to it, right? 15 of those minutes is asking the family, Sharon, Lacey's mom, "How do you feel?" Lacey's brother, "How do you feel? What has it done to you?" When they should spend 20 minutes on the disappearance showing, those things you just talked about and trying to develop those leads. The family should only appear in order to help, should only appear to say, "You know what, she's gone from here." "But you haven't appeared," Amber said. "They have not shown my appearance because when they do, I hold up a flyer and I say, 'This is what's important,'" Scott explained. "They want some kind of drama beyond that." "Of course, you're going to want to direct them away," Amber chided. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, there's Amber. Of course, I can't show my face in front of the camera left and right, because in the back of my mind, Amber's out there somewhere. There's Amber, somebody I've been telling I'm in Europe. Of course that's in the back of your mind. Of course, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't want my face to be shown either. Because there's Amber, right? Ignoring Amber's theory, Scott insisted that he had been on cameras. So did you love Lacey and your baby? Amber prodded. I love Lacey. I loved Lacey, no question, Scott insisted. And she doesn't deserve to be missing. So you loved her, but there's me. How can I make sense of that, Scott? Honey, I'm sorry. Amber, I can't tell you all the details. Amber next asked Scott if he had told his attorney about her. Scott said he had, although his attorney had advised that speaking with Amber was not a good idea. He said, you should not be talking to her, Scott continued. He said, the police had a hard-on to make a case against you, Scott, and he repeated that 3 times. I find it telling that Scott acknowledged that his lawyer had admonished him for not speaking to Amber. Yet he chose to ignore that advice. Once again, Scott just didn't think that the rules applied to him. Only in hindsight, while he was in jail waiting trial, would he admit that his decision had cost him dearly. It's not going to trial because it's not a case, but he said that this is a capital case and they can make anything enough to arrest you. You will not be allowed bail. You will be in jail for months until we can get you released. The conversation ended with Amber threatening to go to the police with details about their sexual affair. Well, yeah, if you think that's the right thing to do, do it, Scott told her. It was just before 4 p.m. when surveillance teams observed that Scott was heading toward the police headquarters on 10th Street. Using the tracking device on the Land Rover, the team trailed behind him as he slowly circled the building. It appeared that he might be looking for a parking space, but he didn't stop. Instead, he drove towards the investigative service building that housed the detective division a few blocks away. Cops followed behind him as he crept along F Street to 13th Street and then turned south on E Street, lapping the department's satellite office to a slow crawl. Using their cell phones, the surveillance officers alerted detectives inside the building. Rushing to the window, Detective Bueller and Owen and Sergeant Alan Carter gazed out to the street just in time to see the green Land Rover motoring eastbound on F Street. Scott never did park the Land Rover and go inside either police building that afternoon. Grogan later theorized that his suspect was doing some surveillance work of his own, checking to see if Amber Fry was making good on her threat. I wonder what Scott might have done if her car was in the parking lot. He was obviously suspicious about her police connections by this time, and further conversations should be reviewed with that in mind. Scott may have been concerned about Amber's actions, but clearly that wasn't the only thing on his mind. Later that day, he called Dish Network to request that Playboy Channel be added to his programming package. At 4 p.m., police watched from a distance as Scott pulled into the parking lot of the Enterprise Car Rental Office on 7th and G Streets. Noting that he was wearing the symbolic yellow and blue ribbon on his shirt, they watched as he loaded several items from Lacey's Land Rover to a white Chevy rental truck, left the parking lot, and returned home. That same day, police divers were examining the waters beneath the Berkeley Marina for a sonar device. Search teams focused on the waters off of Cesar Chavez Park, where earlier cadaver dogs had picked up a scent. Detectives had been advised that the blue tarp had been recovered from the bay earlier in the month near the corner of Cesar Chavez Park. Interestingly, an officer from a neighborhood police department reported that she had seen a blue tarp on Brooks Island on December 28th. That site was directly in line with the area in the park where the tarp had been recovered and where search teams were now poised to begin their sweep. Investigators wondered whether the tarp, which was a similar in color to the one Scott used to wrap his umbrellas, was linked to Lacey's disappearance. Authorities forwarded it to the Department of Justice's crime lab, where an examination revealed that the presence of cat and dog hairs. The hairs were submitted for comparison against those of Scott's pets. When the officers had no luck in the Cesar Chavez section, they shifted to the water near Old Pier. There, one of the officers noticed an object on the screen. It appeared to be the silhouette of a human body floating off the marina, about 3 miles from the shore. Okay, I gotta go. Bye.